Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyabari Paschatya Dishatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Paripurajaka Ashtottara Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Nam Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Ram Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kundradha Kunkiti Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Jai Maharaj. And welcome everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. Today is Friday, June 9th, and we're reading in the third canto, chapter 20, Conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. And we take it up again with text number 7. And as always, Maharaj welcomes your comments and questions, so please use the raise hand feature, or simply unmute yourself and speak when Maharaj asks for questions, or you can type your comments into the chat window. Just remember not to send any chat messages as Maharaj is reading something in the chat box. It makes it more difficult to read. And at the end of class, I'll post some links in the chat that you can share with your friends so that they can attend as well. And if anyone wants to lead the closing kirtan, please send me a message in the chat. Maharaj, we're glad that you could join us. Where are you today?
I'm in New York City.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Evam Ugra Shrava Prishta Rishibhir Naimishaya Naihi Bhagavatyar Pitadhyatmas Tanaha Shruyatamiti. I'm being asked to speak by the great sages of Naimisharanya. The son of Ramaharsha, Suta Goswami, whose mind was absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, said, "Please hear what I shall now speak." Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kodam Mahyam Tatati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lolita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhagavatyar Arpitadhyatmas Tanaha Shruyatamiti. It's significant that Suta Goswami's mind was absorbed, dedicated, Arpita Adhyatma, his mind was dedicated to Bhagavan. the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so these sages were asked to hear Ugra Shava. Rabin says, why Ugra Shava? Well, let's see if we get an answer. I don't know why he's called Ugra Shava. My dictionary doesn't tell me.
Ugra, Maharaj, sorry.
Yes.
Isn't Ugra fierce?
Yeah, Ugra can be fierce. Let's see what else it can mean. Not only fierce. Let's see, Ugra. Strong. High or noble. Seems to fit here. Yeah. It can mean ferocious, powerful, violent, mighty, impetuous, strong, huge, formidable, terrible, or high and noble. So high and noble would certainly fit here. And Shrava, as Nandashesh says, is related to hearing, yes. So he's heard from Shukadev Goswami. That's certainly noble. I don't have a definite reference here, but that seems at least within the range of dictionary reasonability. Okay, thank you for that. And if anyone finds out more, feel free. Sutuvacha parerdrita krodha tanasvamayaya nishamya gaur udharanam prasad talat lilam hiranyaksham avagyayahatam sanjata harsho munimaha bharata. Sutta Goswami continued, Vidura, the descendant of Bharat, was delighted to hear the story of the Lord, who, having assumed by his own divine potency the form of a boar, had enacted the sport of lifting the earth from the bottom of the ocean and indifferently killing the demon Hiranyaksha. Vidura then spoke to the sage as follows. Purport. It is stated here that the Lord assumed the form of a boar by his own potency. His form is not actually a form of a conditioned soul. A conditioned soul is forced to accept a particular type of body by the higher authority of material laws. But here, it is clearly said that the Lord was not forced to accept the form of the boar by the external power. In Bhagavad Gita, the same fact is confirmed. When the Lord descends to this earth, he assumes a form by his own internal potency. Sambhavam Yatma Mayaya. The Mayavad version that when Brahman assumes a form, the form is accepted from Maya, is not acceptable. Because although Maya is superior to the conditioned soul, she is not superior to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She is under the control of the Supreme Godhead, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Maya is under his superintendence. Maya cannot overcome the Lord. The Mayavad idea that the living entity is the supreme absolute truth, but has become covered by Maya, is invalid, because Maya cannot be so great that it can cover the Supreme. Covering capacity can be employed on the part and parcel of Brahman, but not on the Supreme Brahman. Yes, Swamaya. He comes by his own potency. And really, this Mayavad argument, which we sometimes hear, is demolished. Actually, we're all Brahman. That is to say, we're all God, but we've forgotten that we're God because of illusion. That's nonsense, because then illusion or Maya would be greater than God. But then, what is the meaning of God? God means asama, urdhva. No one's equal to him, no one's greater than him. Otherwise, Maya would be God. So the whole notion is wild. We're God, but we've forgotten that we're God because we've come under Maya. The Lord assumes the form of a boar or any of its transcendental forms by his own energy, by his own volition. We assume forms because we're stuck. We have no choice in the matter. But Krishna assumes a form which is transcendental. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur glosses Swamaya as Su-Amaya. He divides it differently. Srila Prabhupada divides it Swamaya, by his own energy. And Vishwanath divides it Su-Amaya. The Su becomes SV by the laws of Sandhi. So Su-Amaya, that is to say, that he's Amaya. Maya means not diseased, not affected by any material influence. Su-Amaya. Amaya. Swamaya. Indifferently, we'll recall Avagyaya, indifferently. Lord Boar killed Hiranyaksha, just gave him a slap, and that was that. So indifferently. This avagya word is also there in the offenses to the holy name, guru or avagya, to become indifferent to the spiritual master, or as Prabhupada said, to disobey the instructions, the orders of the spiritual master. That's an offense against the holy name. There's Tulsi Priya says, I didn't find more than that Ugar. Okay, nothing more in Ugar Shava. Okay, anything else? Viduro vacha prajapati pati srishtva prajasarge prajapatin kimarabhata me brahman prabhu yavyakta margavit. Vidura said, since you know of matters inconceivable to us, tell me, O holy sage, what did Brahma do to create living beings after evolving the Prajapatis, the progenitors of living beings? Purport. Significant here is the word avyakta margavid, one who knows that which is beyond our perception. To know avyakta, unmanifest. To know matters beyond one's perception, one has to learn from a superior authority in the line of disciplic succession. Just to know who is our Father is beyond our perception. For that, the mother is the authority. Similarly, we have to understand everything beyond our perception from the authority who actually knows. The first of Yaktamargavit, or authority, is Brahma, and the next authority in disciplic succession is Narada. Maitreya Rishi belongs to that disciplic succession, so he is also of Yaktamargavit. Anyone in the bona fide line of disciplic succession is of Yaktamargavit, a personality who knows that which is beyond ordinary perception. Of Yaktamarga, the unseen path, that which is beyond our perception, cannot be known by our blunt senses, but one can know by hearing through the parampara system. Upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshanam. Here, Prajapati is Lord Brahma, the father or lord of the Prajapatis. So Lord Brahma created the Prajapatis for the sake of creating Praja, further descendants. Everything is coming down in the hierarchical form. Lord Brahma creates the Prajapatis, and then they create living entities. So Vidura says, please tell me about that. How is it that the Prajapatis created further population? Anything further here?
Maharaj?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Why does he use the word evolving?
Evolving. Certainly not in the sense of Darwinian evolution, but in the sense of one thing coming from another. That appears to be the meaning. Okay. In fact, let's just for fun. Yeah, it comes from a Latin word meaning to unroll, evolvere. To develop gradually, as in to evolve a scheme. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And let's see what comes next. Ye maricha deyo vipra yastu swayam bhuvo manuhu te vai brahmana adeshat gatam etat abhavayan. Vidura inquired, how did the Prajapatis, such progenitors of living entities as Marichi and Swayambhuva Manu, create according to the instruction of Brahma? And how did they evolve this manifested universe? So Marichi and the other great sages, and Swayambhuva Manu, Adeshat, by the order of Brahman, Brahma, they Abhavaya, Abhavayan, they evolved or made manifest. Bhava has to do with manifestation. So Abhava, how did they manifest the universe? They didn't do it all at once. Things gradually appeared. Well, how did that happen? Sadhutiya kemasrijan svatantra Utakarmasu aho switsam hala sarva idam sma samakalpayan. Did they evolve the creation in conjunction with their respective wives? Did they remain independent in their action? Or did they all jointly produce it? Yeah. Did each one do something? Did they do it with their wives? Did they do it all together? What happened here? Maitreya Vacha, Daivena, Durvitarkena, Parenani Mishena cha, Jatakshobhad Bhagavato, Mahanasid Gunatrayat. Maitreya said, when the equilibrium of the combination of the three modes of nature was agitated by the unseen activity of the living entity, by Mahavishnu, and by the force of time, the total material elements were produced. Purport: the cause of the material creation is described here very nicely, very lucidly. The first cause is Daiva, or the destiny of the conditioned soul. The material creation exists for the conditioned soul who wanted to become a false lord for sense enjoyment. One cannot trace out the history of when the conditioned soul first desired to lord it over material nature. But in Vedic literature, we always find that the material creation is meant for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul. There's a nice verse which says that the sum and substance of the conditioned soul's sense enjoyment is that as soon as he forgets his primary duty to render service to the Lord, he creates an atmosphere of sense enjoyment, which is called Maya. That is the cause of material creation. So it appears that, well, let's read on and then we can discuss. Another word used here is durvitarkena. No one can argue when and how the conditioned soul became desirous of sense enjoyment, but the cause is there. Tarkya means logic, argument. Durvitarkena. It's not possible just by logical argument. Material nature is an atmosphere meant only for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul, and it is created by the personality of Godhead. It is mentioned here that in the beginning of the creation, the material nature, or Prakriti, is agitated by the personality of Godhead, Vishnu. There are three Vishnus mentioned. One is Mahavishnu, another is Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and the third is Kshirodakshai Vishnu. The first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam discusses all these three Vishnus. And here also it is confirmed that Vishnu is the cause of creation. From Bhagavad Gita also, we learn that Prakriti begins to work and is still working under Krishna's or Vishnu's glance of superintendence. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unchangeable. One should not mistakenly think that because the creation emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is therefore transformed into this material cosmic manifestation. He exists in his personal form always. But the cosmic manifestation takes place by his inconceivable potency. The workings of the energy are difficult to comprehend, but it is understood from Vedic literature that the conditioned soul creates his own destiny and is offered a particular body by the laws of nature under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always accompanies him as Paramatma. So here, what is the cause of all this? Daivena. The cause is Daiva, destiny. And what is that destiny? The destiny is the background of the conditioned soul's previous activities and previous desires. The material creation isn't brought about because Krishna wants to enjoy having a material cosmic manifestation. The government doesn't take pleasure in creating prisons. The government doesn't take pleasure, the king doesn't take pleasure in creating prisons, but some citizens make prisons necessary. It's by their desire, in effect, that the prisons are created, although they don't want prison life. By their desire, they make the prisons necessary. So Daivena, by destiny, Daivena. And Durvitarkena, we can't argue about it. We always want to argue about it. We want to understand how, when, how is it possible that the conditioned soul became a conditioned soul. But here, Durvitarkena, don't trouble your mind about it because we can't figure it out just by logic. But Daivena, we can understand that it's our own misuse of free will that makes that's the, what's the word, activating force, the impelling force of the material creation. Daivena, Durvitarkena, Prarena, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Animishena, by the power of Lord Vishnu and by the power of time, the all-powerful time factor controls the material nature. In some place, I think perhaps it's Brahma Samhita purports, it's said that Lord Vishnu's glance over the material nature appears in the form of time. And time is insurmountable. No one can stop time. No one can subdue or overcome time. Jata Shobhat Bhagavata on Asit Gunatrayat. Material nature is initially inert, inactive, neutral, quiescent, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead glances over material nature, and by that glance of time, material nature starts cooking things up. Material nature becomes agitated. Material nature starts working. We read the other day yesterday in Chaitanya Charitamrita, scientists think that material nature somehow self-activates, that it on its own, it creates everything. Somehow material nature does that. But that idea is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as demonic. The real fact is that the Lord glances over material nature, and because his glance is all powerful, that glance in the form of time activates material nature. Prabhupada gave an example in one letter of what that activation is like. He gave the example that you have a pot of water and it's sitting on the stove with fire, but nothing happens unless you add time. By the form of time, the water boils and everything happens. We begin to cook. Without time, nothing. Therefore, in all the cookbooks, cook for, steam for 15 minutes, bake for 20 minutes, whatever it is. You have to add time. Otherwise, your preparations are not going to go anywhere. And nothing cooks itself. The dough doesn't decide. The wheat doesn't decide. Let's be bread. We'd be so much more useful if we were bread. Why should there be? What is that? We can become a value-added product. Right now, we're just grains of wheat, but we could become flour, and then we could become bread, and then we'd be so much more valuable. There's no such volition in material nature. But a cook says, let's turn this into flour, let's turn the flour into bread. And by the action of the cook, these things happen. So material nature doesn't self-organize or take the initiative to do anything. But by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the material elements become agitated. Their equilibrium is disturbed. When there's equilibrium, nothing's happening. But when there's agitation, then you start getting all of these forces of nature activated. There's in the chat box, what is the nice chat box? What is the nice verse being referred to in the first paragraph? Not sure. My first thought would be Anadi Bahirmukh Jeev Bhagavan Kore. Prabhupada often quotes that verse. Anadi Bahirmukh Jeev, the living entity, since time immemorial. Anadi. Prabhupada said, since time immemorial, the living entities are Bahirmukh, averse to the service of the personality of Godhead, turning their faces away from the personality of Godhead. Bhagavanshakare, their program is that they want sense enjoyment. This is the whole business, the whole impetus for the creation of the material world, is this desire for enjoyment. I was here in New York City. You see this grand metropolis manifest only for sense enjoyment. The business enterprises, the places of entertainment, everything, the great buildings, the great roads, and the great bridges and great factories, great malls, great this, great that. They all are created just for the sake of sense enjoyment. This spirit of enjoyment underlies everything in the material world. Everyone is thinking somehow or other, let us enjoy, let us enjoy, let us enjoy. It's a very powerful force. Let us start a business and enjoy. Let us let's get married and enjoy. Let's do this or do that and enjoy. And the enjoyment project is a failure. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. Birth, death, disease, and old age spoil the project. Anything can spoil the project. Yes, the last few days we've had this polluted air from the forest fires in Canada, spoiling the project of sense enjoyment, spreading a cloud of toxic danger. So we make our big plans, but nature can spoil things at any moment, and nature does spoil things. Or our expectations are unrealistic. We're thinking we can exploit the resources of the material nature, but as Srila Prabhupada said, we become more and more entangled in her complexities. So the project for enjoyment turns into a program for suffering. Mukesh asks, is destiny a result of appropriate or inappropriate use of free will of a jiva? Yes. If we inappropriately, if misuse means inappropriately use our free will, then the result will be all kinds of problems, which we're destined to accept. Or problems or whatever, the good or bad, shubha palai. Whether it's a good result, I go to the heavenly planets, or a bad result, I go to the hellish planets, or I become wealthy, or I become poverty-stricken. These good and bad results are all the result of misuse of free will. The miseries are miserable, and the enjoyment is just the flip side of misery. So all of these good and bad results are the result of daiva, our destiny caused by our own misuse of independence. Rabin quotes, Karmana daivane trena jantur deho papataye striya pravishta udaram pumso reta ganashraya. Personality of Godhead said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord, daivane trena, and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. So embodied life is due to this cause. Daivane trena, the supervision of the Lord, and karmana, our own past activities. Okay, anything else here?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Jai. I was thinking how in the verse it says that the equilibrium is agitated by the activity, the unseen activity. And I was thinking how that's true across the board. Every action that we witness, if you go deeply into the matter, there's a desire behind it that you don't see in the action itself. You just see a bird flying, or you see a rock rolling down a hill. You see the movement of a river, or you see someone do something. But that unseen activity, it speaks of a desire. And to me, when anyone says that they can perfectly and completely analyze material elements or the constituents of the material universe just by exploration or microscopic analysis or whatever analysis you might do with your senses, it's always going to be inconclusive, because that element of unseen activity or desire, you can never see it. You can never see it. And as the texts, the preceding texts discuss, or this very one, durvitarkena, no matter how good your power of argument is or your analytical power, the best you can do is maybe get sort of close to some explanation of what you're observing, but there will never be anything conclusive. I think that's the point that's hitting me very hard, is that if you want conclusive knowledge, then it has to be the descending process. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, indeed. When you were speaking about the unseen activities or desire, I was thinking about that again, because I'm in New York. You see all these people rushing around here and there, doing whatever it is that they're doing, and they're unaware of the background. They're just oblivious. They have no idea that there's this powerful force behind everything, that there's this powerful force behind their lives, behind their behind what they read in their newspapers, behind everything. They may have some idea, but they hardly. It's all sort of this constricted vision. Everything is up to me. And you get these books, these I think I can books, where everything's it depends on my willpower, my desire. And they really don't see that there's this background force, The more intelligent may see this, but then even they, as you said, can't understand it without receiving it through disciplic succession. They puzzle over it. They perhaps acknowledge that there's some higher power. Or even if there's God, they don't really have a clear picture of what God is up to. Who can have a clear picture of what God is up to? So yes, what you say, I think, is right on target. Antashesh says, any conclusions derived from imperfect, fallible senses will always be inconclusive, fallible, and imperfect. Yes, Targa Apratishta in the Mahabharata, the arguments will always be inconclusive. I have one argument. I saw this when I was in high school, and there were sort of introductory philosophy classes, which I was looking forward to, because I thought now we're going to really get into things. But I saw that just one philosopher is defeating the previous philosopher, that philosopher's finding fault with another philosopher. So there's just this disagreement, sometimes agreement, sometimes disagreement among philosophers, but they're not in true knowledge. If they had any idea, Tulsi Priya says, their lives would be very different. Yes. Tulsi Priya, your hand is there.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you. I was just thinking too that, the scientists and social engineers and all of that, they're working very hard to come up with some kind of all-encompassing answer to life's persistent questions. And when if a devotee were to say, well, this is the conclusive answer, then they backpedal and they say, well, no, we have to be comfortable with ambiguity. We have to embrace the mystery. And, they don't really want conclusive answers, but they spend all their time looking for answers. And that's their paycheck. Basically, they're getting paid to look for answers that they don't really want to find.
Yeah, there are those who, it's all about the search.
Yeah.
but we don't want to actually find anything. And then the demons, they have a conclusive answer. Kamo papoga parama etavaditinishchita. They've ascertained that there's nothing higher than kama and upapogas, lust and enjoyment. This is it, to enjoy as much as you can. So this is their foolishness. And the philosophers, they're more serious, but even they are bewildered. Bhishmadev says that. Who can understand the plans of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Even the great philosophers are bewildered about these things. Murray says one argument given is how can a fallible being identify infallible knowledge? No, he can't. He can't. Therefore, it depends on the mercy of the personality of Godhead. It's not just by gyan or by that one can understand, or by pious activities. It's by the power of bhakti, and that power of bhakti is bestowed by the mercy of a devotee. Without the mercy of a devotee, no one can actually understand what is what. They may advance in gyan, they may advance in speculative knowledge, but they won't truly understand the purpose of life or how to achieve it without the mercy of a devotee who bestows upon them the seed of bhakti. Ananta Shesh says, now they speak of the elusive particle as the God particle. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with what that God particle is about. That's a topic for those who've read up on such things. But certainly God himself is elusive. He's avan manasagochara, beyond the mind, beyond the senses. Avan manasagochara. No one can understand the personality of Godhead by the speculative method, or no one can understand the cause of everything, the background of everything, by the speculative method. Atapite deva, what is that? Padambujam Tvaya. Tvaya, Grihita Evihi, what is that? Atapite deva Padambujam Tvaya. Prasada Grihita Anati Tattvam Bhagavan Mahimno. Then
Janati Tattvam Bhagavan Mahimno.
yes, that's fine.
Oh, here. Looks like Nachanye Kopi Chiram Vichinvan.
Yes. Lord Brahma. Tapite Deva, old word Deva. Tapite Deva Padam Bhujan Tvaya. No one can understand the Lord's feet unless he gets a little prasada lesh, a smidgen, one would say, a little remnant of mercy, prasada lesh on the grihite of the janati tattvam bhagavan. Such a person who gets a little bit of mercy, he can understand the glories of the Lord. Nachanye kopi chiran vichinvan. Speculating and philosophizing for millions of years won't get us there. What is that? Antastu koti satavat sadasam pragamyo. Ayora tapi so munikum gavana. So justi had prepared a sim never chinchatatve. Govindamadi purusham. One may travel at the speed of mind for millions of years and still won't be able to reach the tip of the toe of the personality of Godhead. Yes. Okay, we hear that you're leading the final kirtan rotation. We see that you're
Actually, we have your grand disciple Murari Gupta Prabhu. I was hoping he would lead.
Okay, Murari Gupta.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. Nice to see you.
Hare Krishna, nice to see you. Kirtan.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paripad Jakacharya Ashtottara Satasri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Sridhar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Mukund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Murari Gupta. Thank you to all.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Please share the class links with your friends, and we look forward to seeing you all again on Monday for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
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 Haribol.